334 Edith Street, Wynnum. Practitioners in naturopathy, kinesiology, live blood screening and natural fertility management. 3348 6098.
Station sponsor.
And very good morning. Welcome back to Bay FM, New Leaf and Barry Gibb.
Oh, what a cute little song. That's lovely.
Very romantic.
Yeah.
The album itself, I was a little bit disappointed with the content overall. There's only about 3 or 4 really good songs. I shouldn't say that because people might rush out and buy it, but it is worth buying. Don't get me wrong. Maybe I just didn't give a few of the other tracks enough time, but that particular one I really enjoyed.
No, that's a sweetie. Yeah.
It is. All right, now, Madonna, you were going to talk about something?
So we actually had a phone call a minute ago, someone who mentioned, quite rightly, that GMO foods have been used for thousands of years. So my concern with genetically modified foods these days is when the seeds are actually implanted with things like pesticides and antibiotics. So then as the plant is growing, every time we eat the food or the produce, we're actually getting pesticides and antibiotics that can destroy our gut flora. So because there's so much research, we keep talking about the microbiome, the microbiota. So basically those gut bugs in our body. And I've mentioned before, we've got 23,000 genes. Actually, I think 23 to 27,000 genes. It's somewhere in that range in our body, whereas the bugs in our body have well over 1 million genes. Mm-hmm. And genes are all about keeping us alive. So who's going to win? The little dudes in our gut or us. So if they get out of balance, it's like a big fight in there. So anything that we do that is adding more antibiotics to our system, especially when we're unaware of it, because so many people say to me, oh no, I choose not to do antibiotics. But then when I talk to them, if they're not buying organic meat, they may be getting, a lot of antibiotics, say in their supply of pork or other things, if they are, or chickens or whatever. If they are not choosing non-genetically modified food, they might accidentally be getting lots of antibiotics from that source as well. So that's sort of one of the concerns is that, yes, there's a lot of GMO foods, and I know it's helping people around the world. They're doing all sorts of amazing things with genetic modification. But really, we're the experimental race at the moment with this new technology. So I'm talking the new stuff in the last 20, 30, 40 years. So one of the things, for example, that I know causes damage to many, many children is the increase in lectins. So back in the 70s, there was some genetic modification done to wheat, and it was basically to increase the lectins because lectins are a natural pesticide. And the whole point of doing that was to reduce the amount of pesticides that would have to be put onto the wheat. But what ended up happening was, as you can imagine, nature finds a way. So the bugs got through that natural pesticide. So now they're using 3 to 6 times the amount of pesticides they did before they genetically modified it. So not only do we have the lectins in there, which have been found to destroy the villi in the intestine, so therefore it's been with susceptible people. Once again, it's always with susceptible people. So if we then don't have the ability to get those villi growing in our gut, which is about digestion, it's about enough glutamine in your diet, it's about enough protein, it's about enough vitamin D, vitamin A. There's all sorts of things you need to rebuild that gut lining. So if we're eating things that are destroying our gut lining on a daily basis, we've got to be replenishing it. But how do you know your gut lining's getting broken down? So I suppose that's where at New Leaf, because once again, our caller was absolutely right. These things have been around a long time, but we're getting more and more and more and more of them, and our illnesses are getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
And just while we're on that, a big thanks to that caller. Unfortunately, when the phone rings in the studio and we're live on air, we can't answer the phone at the time, so I'm glad that the person rang back and spoke to the office, and the office very quickly delivered the message. So I do apologise for not being able to answer the phone unless we have set up for the talkback, which we don't today because we weren't expecting the call. So that was the reason we didn't answer the phone. So thanks once again for calling back. It was great.
So I suppose at New Leaf, the way that we would look to see if the gut or the pancreas or the intestines are dysfunctional, one of the testing processes we've got is called an Oligo Scan. So it's a test that very quickly, like literally within 5 minutes, we can get results of. It gives us indicators like proteins in your blood that tells us how your enzymes are functioning in your gut, how strong your gut lining is, how susceptible we are to things like allergies or diabetes or heart disease or mental health issues, or so it gives a really detailed report that and it also lets us know where minerals are in the body, because another one of the problems with our food supply these days is, of course, that our soil in Australia is quite depleted in minerals. So unless farmers are putting a lot more minerals into the soil, which of course costs them money.
Of course.
So, we all know that farmers are struggling on the land these days. So I can't imagine that they're deliberately putting lots of nutrition into the soil unless it becomes a government. So it will have to be the government. The government will have to make these rules to say, we need your tomatoes to have this amount of potassium, or we need your potatoes to be, da-da-da-da. It's going to have to come from the government, because why would the farmers do it?
Yeah, a little bit money, maybe a little bit less money spent in some areas and a bit more going back into the people in the country. You're dead right. You see these politicians go out and shake hands and, blah, blah, blah to the farmers, but do they really come back with a handful of pocketful of cash for them and say, okay, put some stuff in the ground, let's get this thing going? It doesn't really happen.
No. So the OligoScan is one of the tests that we love at New Leaf, because it gives so much information really quickly. The other thing that it does, when people have been taking supplements for a long time, sometimes they're overtaking things. So sometimes we'll actually, because one of the pages of that report gives us where their minerals are at. So they might be taking, say, iodine, because they've always known they've got a thyroid problem, but they might be really high in iodine. They don't need it at the moment. So there's not really any problems with too much iodine, but there certainly are with some things like zinc and selenium and stuff like that.
Do you test for that, do you leave?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the OligoScan. Yeah, definitely.
You give the person the result?
Yeah,
Okay.
pretty much instantly. All we need is their blood group, but we can also do that test if they don't know that as well.
Exactly.
So, but if they do know it from their doctor, cheaper to get it from their doctor. But, it's easy. It's a quick, easy test. And the good thing about that is it really targets what we need to do. So, for example, I had a lady who's been getting migraines her whole life, and she knows that she really struggles anytime she reduces her amount of magnesium, but she takes heaps and heaps of magnesium. When we had a look at her OligoScan, her magnesium levels were perfect, but her mercury levels were through the roof. So she had exceptionally toxic doses of mercury. Now, what happens in that case is mercury binds with magnesium, and it makes the magnesium unavailable to the cells. So it's sort of like, and I think this is happening a lot more with all of these environmental toxins in our body, is the cells are really starting to get confused about what's good and bad. Like, how does the body know the difference between magnesium and mercury? Or how does it know the difference between a good free magnesium or a magnesium that's bound with mercury? So the body's trying to utilise stuff that's in there, but it really doesn't give us a good result.
It doesn't know until it's ingested, does it?
No, exactly not.
Your eyes can look at it, but that's not
Yes,
going to tell.
and the more toxins we have in our body, you can actually have because each cell in our body has up to 500,000 receptors, and those receptors are for everything, minerals and hormones and immune system cells and all sorts of things. So the more toxins we've got in the body, the toxins are just trying to find their way through our systems. So I think we need to be thinking detoxification on a daily basis. It doesn't matter what it is, whether you start taking some silymarin or you start taking some curcumin every day or you start taking lots of probiotics. It's about doing something consciously so that you're constantly helping out your body with this detox, because I don't think our planet is going to get less toxic.
No. Oh, definitely not.
I just can't see it. So, did I tell you about salt last week?
No.
I was so disappointed with this week. I was watching something on Facebook, and scientists have done studies of salt in 15 different continents and found BPAs, so the bisphenol A plastic, in all of the salt being contaminated with it. So the BPA in the plastics are breaking down in the ocean. We're getting the salt out, we're drying it, and then we're eating it.
Yeah.
And I had not even thought of that as a thing. So
correct me if I'm wrong. Salt really isn't farmed, is it? It's not like sugar that's farmed or.
That's right. It's one of the pure things that you'd think we'd be okay with.
You don't plant a plant to get salt.
No. So that's a real disappointment to me. So I don't know how they're going to, because they know it now. And like I said, there's so many studies now that are showing that BPA is linked with prostate cancer and other problems like children's ASD and autisms and that. There's a lot of research.
Hard to believe that the plastics and the plastic bottles in the ocean, which is a terrible thing really, can get into the salt. That's really
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, so they're breaking down in the water.
Yeah.
So therefore it's just there.
Okay.
You know, it's part of the whole
And
thing.
what if they've got a way they can purify it? I suppose
Well,
they
that's
can't take out the...
Well, I don't know at this stage. They're going to have to, I would imagine they'll have to create something to do that, because once again, it's going to have to be government regulation. So there's going to have to be testing at some stage when governments go, okay, this is really bad. But you can imagine from the government's perspective, the BPA in our health is going to have to cost them a fortune before they will make it a law that companies have to, self-regulate and get it out, because it's going to be a money thing. It's always a money thing.
Everything's money, isn't it?
It is. It is.
Nothing you do in life is free.
No. So a lot of the detail.
Anyway.
No, a lot of dancing's free, singing's free. Yeah.
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 Well, it is if you do. Yeah. Well, I suppose it is free if you don't go to a dance club and you don't have to pay any money.
Okay.
But singing in the car, that's free.
That's it. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we can do these sort of detox processes with people. We can sort of find out, precancerous conditions. We can sort of look at their health and really start working towards it. Because how many people do you know who go, well, it's in my family, of course I'm going to get it. So just because you've had constipation for 30 years, just because you've got IBS or Crohn's disease, it does not determine the fact that you're going to get bowel cancer. So certainly I was just sort of throwing out a few of the signs and symptoms, but man, we really just have to just be aware. Start looking at your poop.
We've only got 3 minutes left to talk about the poo train, so it is important. Look, we do laugh and joke about it. There'll be a lot of people thinking, oh, what are those two talking about? But you did right.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's all of those things, once again, like water instead of coffee. Make sure if you're a 12 coffee a day person, every time you have a coffee, have a glass of water. Just start adding in that water. My water guy told me yesterday that he's delivering about 90% less water at the moment.
Really?
Yeah, so people are not, and you can imagine he's got clients they've had for 10 years. Winter, people don't drink their water. That's just interesting to me.
I put water in my scotch.
Oh, right, okay, well, that helps.
And ice cubes, which is just frozen water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. So I think, coming back to New Leaf, when we start looking at people's health, whether it's through acupuncture or kinesiology or the supplements or naturopathy or the massage or whatever it is that people are wanting to come in. Oh, because Chini Seng. So Chini Seng's that abdominal massage that Shelby and Rob do as well. So that's an abdominal massage that's an hour. Once again, we've had people with bowel cancer and liver cancer who sort of have done that because they're in so much pain all the time. And funnily enough, by the time a lot of people end up finding, especially the combination, quite often, it's often 3rd and 4th stage cancer by the time they find they've got liver and bowel cancer at the same time, which is devastating. But by this point, quite often the chemo and radiation just aren't enough. There's very low long-term prognoses for those people. So from my perspective, anything you do then to help people from my perspective, they need hope because the statistics aren't good. So therefore, everything that gets that digestion going, every change you make in your life. I was sort of having a look at a website this morning from Sweden, and they have a 25-step approach to bowel cancer. And I was sort of looking through it, and no surprise, it's making sure they get enough sunshine. It's making sure they've got a diet that's working for pro health. It's making sure that they're getting enough sleep. It's reducing their stress. They have a dozen practitioners that each person deals with so that they start sorting out their life bit by bit, getting in the exercise, getting in the treatments that are going to really help them.
Okay, alrighty. Now, we're running out of time, but we need to get some telephone numbers.
Okay.
And what people do, the first step they take, if they're interested in what they've heard here today, who do they contact?
Yeah.
And who do they talk to, and what do they do for
Beautiful. So Lynn and Sanu are our reception team, and they're on 33486098. It's always important to give them a little bit of an idea. You don't have to divulge your deepest, darkest secrets, but you can imagine the more information you're happy to give them over the phone, the more they can direct you to the right pracky for you. So, for example, if you ring up with gut pain today, a Qi-Ni-Seng balance is going to be one of the things that's going to help you out the most. Whereas seeing Georgia and I, if we prescribe supplements, that's going to take a while. So it depends whether someone is in acute need, we might put them in for an acute treatment, or whether they're after symptomatic care, they don't care about the cause of it, they just want to get their symptoms under control, or whether there's someone who really goes, I've been dealing with this for 30 years, I need to sort it out.
Okay, thanks Madonna. We have run out of time. We're heading towards the news update. Catch you next Friday.
Absolutely.
Look forward to your company then. This is BFM. Thanks for your company. I'll be back with you again early next week.
Time next week to hear